The academic essay is a very specific genre, and it happens to be a genre that most of us don't read a lot of. We rarely write in genres that we don't read, and yet we ask students to write a lot of academic essays without having them read quite so many. So, I want to take a little bit of time to help you get through these assignments, whether it's from the drafting stage or through the revising stage. There are some basics that you can take care of right from the start so that you don't need this kind of thing to be brought up in the grading system. Okay, let's take a look at some stuff that's pretty blanket advice for any essay you could be writing. The first thing that I want to cover, of course, is things that you should do. There aren't a lot of universal things that you should do for every single essay because essays have different goals and different audiences and all that stuff. So they're pretty general, but follow along. For example, you should double space your writing. Everything you turn in college should be double spaced. This might seem completely obvious to you, but it might not be either because I tell a lot of students to do some double spacing. Figure out, according to your word processor, how to make the double spacing automatic so you don't have to worry about it, and make sure that you're always doing that. Use authoritative language. Always try to step in there and take the reins as if you're an expert. Even if you don't feel very expert about it, this is really part of the process of learning, part of the process of communicating, is speaking with some manner of authority. Trust yourself a little bit and also trust your audience to understand that you're adopting authoritative language because that's how the genre works. Use short paragraphs. I'm telling you, I can't stress this enough. I don't know a lot of professors who would rather have you do longer paragraphs, but for me especially, I'm dyslexic. I do a lot of reading. I lose my place if I don't have a short paragraphs. Paragraphs should be one idea, one place, one time, one speaker, uh, and switch every time you get a chance. The white space is helpful to readers, which is sort of the same reason that we do double spacing. And also, it's a nice little outline of what you're thinking. Writing is more than just putting words down. It's visual communication. And seeing those your ideas blocked out in these paragraphs helps us to understand how you're thinking, your thought process, the way things connect without being overwhelmed with one of those giant blocks of black text. On that note, paragraphs, in order to get a really strong, full, finished paragraph, think fact example analysis. Now, fact example analysis is always the way that I frame it. I've also heard it be called the pie method, and I'm going to look up the pie method. Hold on. Okay, so the pie method makes some sense too. That's point, illustration, and explanation. So it's sort of the same idea. The point is that anytime you're writing a paragraph, you want to make sure that it is a full idea, that it is finished. So state your fact, give an example that's specific of that fact, zoom in on something that illustrates that fact, and then provide analysis. Now, this also means that if you're using quotes, if you're writing a research paper essay, and I'm not going to go too much into that specifically, but if you're writing a research paper essay and you have quotes, don't ever end a paragraph with quotes. End with analysis of that quote. Always lead that back to the thesis statement. You want to walk us by the hand, take us by the hand and say, you see this quote? Look, this is why it matters. And jerk us over there back to your thesis statement, forcing us to sort of make this connection that you've already made clearly by your quote selection. Also, we have a lot of things that we should stop doing. There's some just common errors that I see time and time again. So I implore you to follow some of this advice. In this essay, I will do not announce your intentions. Especially when you're introducing, when you're giving us a thesis statement, you want to make a strong, powerful, assertive statement, not an announcement of what you're going to do. This goes for all sorts of different things that I call scaffolding. Scaffolding is when you are making a building or a pyramid or whatever, and you have a structure that's built up on the outside for the ease of construction. But then you take that stuff down when it's finished so that you're not staring at the scaffolding. Do not make your reader stare at your scaffolding. If you're going to say in this essay, I will, just do it. Don't tell us you're going to do it. First of all, secondly, thirdly of all, these kinds of transitions are the same type of scaffolding that I'm talking about. Do not tell us that you're moving from one idea to another. It's absolutely unnecessary. If you're doing a good job of moving from one idea to another, we're going to follow you. And if you're not doing a good job, saying second of all isn't going to help. You really need to try to be clear with your movements without using these lazy, choppy, essay ish words. I know that at some point somebody taught you to do this. At some point, some fourth grade teacher or something tried to teach this to you. And it was just to make it obvious. And it really should have been pulled down by the end of that grade. But, we all get busy. And don't use rhetorical questions. Students always like to write these rhetorical questions. What would the world be like without water? I'll tell you what it'll be like. You don't have to do that stuff. That's mainly you talking to yourself. You're getting yourself going. You're trying to prod at yourself for what kinds of stuff you want to answer. We don't need to hear it. By the time that we're reading your essay, it should be fully composed and not assume that your reader has a bunch of questions that you're going to prognosticate an answer for them. I think this goes back to the authoritative language thing. Don't tell us that you believe that such and such is true, or I think that this is what we should do. We know this is you. We know that you've written this. It didn't come out of the ground. So you don't need to do that. Most of the time, just like with those transitional words, you can just cut this out. You can just highlight it and then delete it, and you don't even have to fix the rest of the sentence. Most of it will still work. Just remove this kind of thing. Again, anytime you're giving us a view backstage, anytime you're saying, this is how I'm going to write the essay, this is what I think about this subject, you don't need to do that. Magicians don't do that. They stand up there and they give a performance. That's what you're doing. You're giving the performance. Show, don't tell. Oh my gosh, and that especially goes for in conclusion, in summation, all in all. I've read so many all in alls, which isn't even how people should talk, according to me, but it's something that people say, and it's something that you sort of attach in there. And again, you're talking to yourself, you're telling yourself that you're finishing. If you have to signal to your reader that you're all done and you're going to wrap stuff up, then you're not wrapping stuff up very well. If you're concluding, we can follow. If you're not concluding, saying in conclusion does not fix it. And I know we all have this sort of cute idea of thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And that's kind of what that reads like. But you're not speaking, you're writing. You don't need to tell this stuff. Now, listen. The most important thing, I think, is that you remember that this is your paper. I know that I'm giving you a lot of blanket advice, and I know that when I critique your paper, I give you all sorts of specific and blanket advice. But in the end, these are your decisions. You are the author. You're the one who's going to take it on. If for some reason you think saying first of all, second of all, in conclusion works better for your paper, like maybe you're being cute or something, by all means, don't let me stop you. You have the final say. If your reader or a collection of readers tells you, this is a confusing part, or this is unclear, or geez, I really could use more detail here, they're probably right. It's really seldom that somebody paying attention to somebody else's writing is wrong when they're confused or distracted or otherwise find something unclear. But you don't have to fix things in the way that your teacher tells you to. This is your paper. You are the author. You should be proud. And it should not be the product of the teacher. Now, that sounds really silly, but we don't want you to write our essay. We don't want you to see how we write and emulate that. We want you to write like you write and to build on your own strengths. And then these other sorts of things that you can sort of cut out, they don't really matter so much. But again, that's your decision. It is not my decision. If that seems somehow contradictory, I understand, but the world is full of contradiction and nuance. Without nuance, we would all be living the same sort of cookie cutter life. And despite the fact that the world is increasingly moving towards this notion of a combined universal curriculum and robots grading your papers, we don't really want that. We want specifics. We want individuals. We want you not to fit in the mold. You get to define what it means to be an educated writer. And that's why there is nuance within all of this. You can learn from other people's lessons while still blazing your own trail. And that's the idea. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you walk away that way, but I want you to start trying. Okay, so this is my specific essay writing advice. Thank you very much. In conclusion, I'm done.